A young woman gives birth to her first child, a little girl with chubby cheeks and arms and legs so fat her joints look like lines drawn on clay. The young woman is nervous. Will she be able to provide a good life for her child? What will people think of her as a young single mother? Will she be a good mom? Will her child love her as deeply as she loves her child? Though she worries, she's also joyful. She feels so lucky to be gifted the opportunity to bring a beautiful, bright-eyed baby into the world. She does not withhold affection. She pays close attention to her child's vocal inflections, distinguishing a hungry cry from a diaper change cry. She laughs as the baby pinches up her face in disgust when offered squash, or sticks out her tongue when given peas. She understands that these will not be viable options for feeding her daughter. And as her daughter grows, she delights that such a small person can have such a deep voice. She marvels that her daughter can read small books at age 3, and that she can somehow give directions from the back seat of the car. She's tickled that her child has chosen to sing the solo at her preschool graduation, and she shows the video to all of her family and friends. This is a child who knows she is loved. This child makes friends easily, develops confidence in her abilities, and allows her imagination to create possibilities for herself. As she grows, she does not expect that the world is against her, and she is easily able to recognize when people are for her or against her. And in her adulthood, she devotes herself to helping others find love within themselves and among the people in their lives. And she's honored to be speaking to you at a conference about joy and awe in parents during the first 5 years of life. My name is JaVon Townsend. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, an artist, and a birth worker. And I am the founder of Vivid Consulting, where I support people in developing wellness through creativity and connection, through utilizing practical wellness strategy and radical self-love. Like many researchers in the social sciences, I was motivated to investigate a question that had personal significance to me. All throughout my education and into my career, I found myself constantly bristling against the research that I read about people like me. The statistics were always framed negatively, and the questions were almost always rooted in presumption of deficit. Where or how are these people failing? They created narratives that described us as people who were constantly in need, on the brink of collapse or self-destruction, or even dangerous. And these narratives also carried an undertone that we ourselves were the cause of all of these things. And I just could not take it. I argued with my teachers. I complained at professional development trainings. I bored my friends and family. I was so tired of hearing about the deficits of Black people all over the world. The way that the data was framed did not match my personal lived experience, or what I observed in my community, or in places around the world. Africans, and those of us descended from Africans brought to the Americas through the Atlantic slave trade, have demonstrated over and over that despite centuries of oppressive circumstances, we have been able to not only survive, but also to thrive. Where was this in the discussion of the literature? So I found a way to do it myself. While visiting Ghana, I recognized many similarities in the values and the style of family structure that I was raised with in the United States. Ghanaian culture has many pro-social conventions that I find to be central to healthy social living and experiences. And because many of these mindsets and behaviors are developed at an early age, I wanted to know how people were raising their children. So I applied for and received a Fulbright grant and returned to Accra the following year. So this is a cartogram of the global population in 2018. It is a map in which the appearance of each country is altered to reflect some attribute of that country. So in this case, this represents the global population in which You can see India and China are distorted to be larger. The United States and Canada are smaller to represent the population. And at the time, in 2018, 90% of all the research that we had on early childhood development came from only 10% of the world's population, and that being primarily white and Western. So the United States, Canada, parts of Europe, 90% of the research that we had on early childhood development came from those parts of the world, and 10% was everybody else. That research is what is then used to develop programs and to develop programs around parenting skills and early childhood education. And that is what also determines the work that practitioners are doing when they work with families during this stage of life. From this map of 2022, we can see that the majority of the world's population is represented in the global south. And the number of births that occurred in 2020 indicate that there is a need for better representation of the global south in the research. In my work in the United States, most of the families that I was working with did not fit into one of the three categories of white, Western, or upper middle class. This lack of positive representation in the research has significant impact on more than just the academic world. On a micro level, this influences the way that groups of people are perceived, and it also influences the way that we are taught to perceive ourselves. It can further oppression by lifting the experiences of one group while also silencing or distorting the experiences of another. And this also plays an important role in the way we respond to our environment and how our environment responds to us. At a macro level, research informs policy, and policy impacts daily life. When research only tells a story of deficit, we get policy and programs that are rooted in deficit. Further, funders and organizations are rewarded when deficit continues to be present, as this is the data that drives their work. As a clinician and a consultant, I know that strengths must be considered in order to perform a complete assessment. Otherwise, you risk treating the wrong problem, spending time and resources on an issue that does not need to be addressed, or addressing it in the way that it doesn't need to be addressed. When we have research that tells a fuller story, we have opportunity to improve the well-being of people impacted by the research through more humane policy. 15 years of working closely with individuals and groups has taught me that when people feel seen, appreciated, understood, they also feel safe. And when they feel safe, they can learn and grow easily. Self-efficacy, or one's own understanding of their abilities, is one of the most important indicators of success. If people believe that they can change and grow because the evidence in front of them says so, they're more likely to be successful in their attempts to change and grow. As a social worker, I've been privy to the intimate details of many people's lives from all kinds of experiences and backgrounds. Everyone has strengths and gifts, and regardless of their circumstances, this is what guides my work. So it was vital to me that the study be strengths-based and open-ended. In 2018 and 2019, I interviewed 20 custodial parents of children aged 1 to 5 in Accra, Ghana. The parents ranged in age from 19 to 63, and they represented low, middle, and upper income communities. 6 of the interviews were completed in the Ghanaian language with the aid of an interpreter. 60% of the participants completed at least a secondary education. 75% of the participants were unmarried, so they might be with a partner but not married to that partner. And 90% of the represented participants were Christian, which is about average for the country. The majority of the parents interviewed had only one child, and the family with the most children had 6. They were asked to choose one child to answer questions about in the interview, and the distribution for the ages of those children was about even. And there was also a 50-50 split among the sexes of the children that were identified in the study. The study was comprehensive. So I looked at various developmental domains, but I also allowed space for exploring positive interactions. And I noticed a phenomenon peeking through. Sometimes when I would ask parents a question, their faces would light up. Sometimes they would try to hold back a laugh or stifle a coy smile. And sometimes their tone would shift to wonder as they described something that their child could do. It was really delightful, and so I coded these things as joy and awe, and that is what I'm going to be sharing with you today. And as we consider human growth and development, parental joy and awe are vital components. In our first 5 years of life, our brains are constantly making connections to help shape the way we understand our world. Our brains prioritize connections through repetition. So repeating positive experiences creates stronger connection in the brain around expecting positive experiences. This also contributes to resilience when facing life's challenges and positive internal narratives about who we are and what our role in the world is. In addition, these experiences help to create what we call a secure base in attachment theory, meaning that a child learns to recognize that their caregiver is a safe place for them to return to as they go out and explore new experiences in the world. Physiologically, when we laugh or smile or hug or play, hormones like oxytocin, dopamine, and endorphins are released. These send messages to our brains and bodies that allow for social bonding and tell us that we are safe and can develop trust. We feel good and we have a positive mood. These hormones also actively counter the effects of stress hormones, and that can be effective in reducing symptoms of anxiety and depression. Reduction in stress is also key to reducing incidences or preventing incidences of abusive or negligent behavior. And finally, these hormones can promote the development and maintenance of self-confidence, both in the child and in the caregiver. When the child recognizes that they are contributing to the happiness of their caregiver, they feel confident that they will be received well in the world. And when the caregiver recognizes that they're contributing to the well-being of their child, they feel confident in their ability to parent. So let's hear from the participants of this study. Awo says, "I enjoy it when we sing together. She either brings up the song or I do. When she does, I have to pause with whatever I'm doing, and sometimes she asks me to clap as she sings. Other times, she takes my phone. I have some educative games on it. She comes to me to help her with the game, though she can do it on her own. She sometimes asks me not to sew, but to sit and learn with her. It makes me happy." And Abena says, "Maybe fixing with the Legos, he will tell me I should sit down. Sometimes he will sing, and then he will ask you, 'Mama, do you know how to sing?' I will say no. 'Okay, then I will teach you. When I say it, you say it. When he's singing, I'll also sing after him.'" So in these two quotes, we see bonding through invitation and acceptance to play. The child is inviting the caregiver into their world, and they get to experience the joy of being invited and accepted, and the child gets to experience the closeness of having their parent care about what they care about. Kofi says, "We like playing in the room, like beating daddy. It's like we are fighting. The elder one too will come and we all play. At times, the two of them, they'll sleep on me, then we're jumping. So they give me joy. I'm so happy that God has given me these children." And Amma says, "First of all, I'm happy I have a child. Because the man I gave birth with, he is the only son. And so because of that, I am glad to have a child too. And when I gave birth, they really made me feel at home and accepted me, which is not so usual for a young girl who has given birth out of wedlock. But they made me feel at home. So whenever I see the child, I'm happy. I play with her, and sometimes I pray with her. And when I take her out, people give comments of how beautiful she is and give her gifts. So I see my daughter is full of luck." So in these quotes, we see that the parents are expressing how the presence of their child has improved their life in some way. Ajua says, "And sometimes I surprise him, buy him something that he's not expecting. That's what I do. I buy him some. When I'm coming back home, I pass by La Paz, buy him something, maybe sandals or some clothes, jeans, sneakers, trousers. Kwaiko will be happy, jumping. I'm happy. If your son is happy, you too, you will feel happy. Because you feel, when you buy him all those stuff, you feel that you have done something good for him, because it brings joy to the child. And Kofi also says, at times I carry them to the mall. I don't have much money, but I just like them to feel happy. We went to the mall, we went to Avery Gardens, yes, we went to the airport, so they know places. Yes, especially the first one, they know places. We go to Avery and all those places. So I travel with them just to have fun. Children's Park, Bonjo Beach. We went there and we had fun. So they always feel happy. So in these quotes, we see parents expressing what they can offer to their child and how it brings them joy to offer them joy to their child. Ajwa says, oh, Kwaiko is very funny. Kwaiko is very funny. Sometimes they make me laugh. Sometimes when I look at him, I can laugh. Then when I'm feeling sad is aside. And Akosua says, oh, he makes me smile. Maybe I'm sad. He does something and I can laugh. Anytime I remember the things he does, I will be laughing. Mawena adds, watching her play around and even growing up is so much joy, yes. Being around her it's entertainment. At least when I'm in a sad mood, she makes me happy. She will be doing stuff and I will start laughing. And Kojo says, a lot. I like it when she teaches me the alphabets and when she canes me. I feel happy. I feel very, very happy because even when I'm not in a good mood, she always manages to make me happy. Fatima also says, it's a lot. I'm happy whenever I see her. I was a bit matured before I got married, and so I wasn't getting pregnant. And when I finally gave birth to her, I was very excited. Even now, when I ask her to take something for me, she acts in a way that makes me start laughing. So in these quotes, we see that just who the child is inherently contributes to making the caregiver happier in some ways. And we also see that there's a positive shift in the mood of the parents when their child is present. Amina says, it's a nice experience raising a child. Because when you are single, you're free to do anything that you want. But when you become a mother, the lifestyle is different when you're a mother. Bringing her up, at times crying, you have to sit with her, she stops crying. Feeding her, bathing her, it's a whole work on its own. Seriously, bringing up, when you are a mother, you don't have to sleep. You can't sleep and enjoy. Like I said, at times she'll wake up 2, 1. You can't sleep again because she is not asleep, so how can you sleep? You have to wait for her till she also sleeps before you go back to sleep. So bringing her up is good. It's a nice experience having her close. It's nice, I enjoy it. And Seiram adds, the pain you go through at times, but the joy they give you when you play together. You go out and have fun. They talk with you. They discuss issues with you. You understand? School, and I just enjoy that. And so in those last 2 quotes, we see that parents are expressing the joys that they feel in being a parent, despite the challenges that come with being a parent. So I'd like you to consider how you feel listening to these stories. And I'd like you to consider how the participants would feel hearing their stories shared this way in research. If researchers want to contribute to the well-being of the people that they are studying, fuller stories are essential for greater well-being. And we deserve fuller stories. Thank you.
Excellent job, JaVon. Any questions?
Yeah, it really touched me, all the comments. So I just want to ask a question related to, from the perspective of parents. Like if you have a child in the age bracket of 10 to 15, and you have so much of research, so yeah, you can answer it. So if in that age bracket, the child is into his own friend circle, he feels that social media is his life, and he's telling the parents also that my happiness is all about social media, my happiness is all about my friends, so you please give me the space. So if giving space at that time, you feel that is the responsibility of a parent, or then also, for giving time and try to just contribute in some other way. I think you understand my question.
I understand.
So what is the best way to contribute?
Sure. It's a tricky question. That age is difficult. The reason that I chose to focus on the smaller age is because a lot of, as I mentioned about the brain development, a lot of the expectations that children have of their parents comes from that very early stage. It kind of sets the tone. So when we have children that enter adolescence, right, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, that stage for many groups of people around the world is a stage where a child is learning, they're learning how they are going to be in the world. So part of that is the experience of stepping away so that they can come back, right? And when children feel that their parents are a safe place for them, sometimes it feels to the parents that they're pulling very far away, but the child knows that they can always come back, which allows them to do things where they're experimenting and they're finding for themselves, this is really who I am, this is not who I am. So they might try things that we would consider rebellious, but they feel grounded because they have this attachment to the people who love them and have supported them through their life. And so we usually see that they come back during the older years, like 19, 20, 21, right? They start to feel like, oh, actually I need this from my parents. And so providing stability for them during that time when they're telling you, no, I need privacy, no, I need space. When you're able to give them a sense of safety where they know that you're not going anywhere, where they know that they can't lose your love, that allows them to, return to who they truly are. Yeah, thank you.
Other questions, JaVon? Going once, or comments, going twice.
Thank you so much for sharing. It's very, very lovely to have such a parent because I lived in China for around 6 years after 10 years old. And when I was there, most of my classmates who were born there have parents. The parents are so strict and their goal is to let their kids become successful. So there's not much true connections and relationship with the child. And I can see it's so important to create that link, that safety and security since a young age to go out to the world and knowing that, oh, I can be free. So thank you for sharing so much.
Thank you. Yeah, I will add also that Ghanaian culture is also very strict. And the only research that I could find when I was preparing to do my study was only about that. It was only saying, parents are very strict. You have to grow up and be a doctor and engineer. That's the expectation of West African parenting. And then people will say that, and half joking and half serious. But the reason that I chose to highlight this is because that's not the only thing that's happening. It's not only that they're very strict and restrictive, and I think it's important to both the people who are outside of the group and for the people inside of the group to recognize that it is possible to establish a bond with your child, even if your values say that the way to raise them is this one way. And it's also important for people to understand that it is already happening, that it's not something that has to come from the outside, that even within those restrictions around income, right, around the idea that success is directly linked to one or two occupation, and if you don't fit into those one or two occupation, you're a failure as an adult or as a child. But if parents understand that these little things of playing with them, of smiling at them, if they understand that that is also important in creating success, and they see that they're already doing those things, even if it's small, it helps to increase the likelihood that they'll do it more. And not consider it a way to raise your child, but to understand that it is already part of our culture that we do this already. So my hope is that also if research expands to places like China as well, and people are able to use the same sort of lens that I approached the study from, that we'll be able to see, like, it is possible for Chinese parents to create successful futures for their children while also being very kind and nurturing at the same time. So thank you for bringing that point.